As the United Kingdom continues to find its way out of the European Union, the country has been busy readjusting the dynamics of its bilateral relations, especially with countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Unfortunately for Nigeria, this cost-cutting exercise promises to bite economically, with the British set to roll back aid by as much as 58%, effective March the 31st. Joining us now to look at the likely implications of this development for needy groups and communities in Nigeria who have immensely benefited from such assistance packages is Professor Jideofor Adibe, a professor of political science and international relations at the Nasarawa State University in north-central Nigeria. We also focus on the worsening security challenges across Nigeria and the attempt by some interest groups to make the media a scapegoat for it. Buhari administration's accomplishments in placing Nigerians in critical positions in international organizations, the changing landscape of Southeast politics ahead of 2023 elections, and a whole lot more. Welcome to the program, Professor Jideofor Adibe. It's good to see you again. How are you? Good morning.
I'm all right. Thank you, Ruben. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good morning. Well, let's start with the UK.
Yeah, good morning, Ruben.
Yes, thanks. Last week or so, we had Chancellor Rishi Sunak unveiling the budget. And one of the issues was about, okay, how do you address fiscal deficit? And now, by this morning, we have the UN representative on international human rights complaining that the UK cutting its aid to Yemen is like balancing the books, balancing the budget at the expense of Yemen. But we are seeing, as my introduction indicated, that it's not just Yemen. Other countries are likely to suffer. But what the UK is trying to do with regard to international aid, is it not understandable? The highest budget deficit, the highest debt ratio since 1963. And yet, you have in the UK the people saying the government should do more for the people in the context of Brexit and COVID-19. And yet you have the international community saying, well, Britain, the United Kingdom, should not reduce aid. What's your take on this?
Thank you very much, Ruben. Actually, the conversation had been going on since last year in the United Kingdom. And what happened was that they decided to reduce the percentage of aid they give to some countries from 7% of the gross national income to 5%. So, you know, as you said, it's not only Nigeria that is involved. You have Yemen, you have Democratic Republic of Congo, you have, Somalia, among other countries. As a matter of fact, the package, Nigeria's reduction is estimated to be by only 58%, compared to countries like Yemen, where the reduction would be more than almost 88%. So, how will it affect the country? It's actually too early to say. And we're working on the assumption, when people criticize the move, there is the assumption that the aid packages necessarily work. There are actually Africans who believe that actually reducing or even entirely removing the aid budget will address the problem of the begging bowl syndrome we have in Africa. As a matter of fact, as early as 2014, the British watchdog, an international commission on aid impact, concluded that British aids to some countries virtually had no impact at all. You know, they did not promote freedom. They did not even reach the people that they were supposed to be, you know, targeting. So I don't think we should actually be worrying so much about this reduction. The concern is actually that the reduction, the UK reduced the percentage that they give as aids. At the same time, they increased the proportion spent on defense budget. That should actually be where we should be worried.
Well, thank you, Professor. You're sounding, well, towards the end there, you're sounding like that book, Dead Aid, and how aid is actually not useful to Africa at all. But you said it's too early to tell the effects that it would have. But what do you make of the general trend that we're seeing now towards more nationalistic, protectionist policies, such as this reneging from the United Kingdom of their promise, which is actually codified in legislation, to dedicate 0.7% of their budgets to foreign aid, and also COVID vaccine nationalism? Even in Nigeria, we flexed our protectionist muscles with the border closure. What exactly is going on internationally that's driving this kind of thinking?
Yeah, of course, worldwide there's been an right-wing ideas are being mainstreamed, and countries are becoming more nationalistic across the globe. So with Brexit and the United Kingdom going out of the European Union, we expect some changes. There are, should be expected that there are some changes. And as far as I say it, I actually believe that we should start looking at the other side of the equation instead of worrying. Or let me put it differently. Some people ask, why do they need to give aid to some countries? Yes, compassion is there. Yes, the need to, to help the less privileged is there. But it is part of the ways of projecting power by the rich countries. So it is also part of the ways they control their citizens internally, by letting them know, like, well, things may be very bad here, but compared to the people that we are supporting, you should count yourself lucky. So these are the changes that are happening globally that we are going to look at. If they reduce this involvement, in which other forms are they going to project their power? And if we worry about the reduction, we should pose the other question, have they really worked? Or have they just succeeded in fueling corruption and creating a whole network of NGO bureaucracies that end up benefiting more the people that run those organizations? Some people have actually concluded that what you have with the NGO community is measuring their performance in terms of funds disbursed and in terms of glossy reports presented, rather than in terms of the impact they have made.
Exciting insights. But my question will, I think I'll further turn this point by asking, when are we even going to get off this aid thing we normally do, this aid football we play? Because, yeah, aid is good when it's for a specific purpose. After the Second World War, President of America then did give aid. It was something called the Marshall Plan, and they gave it to Europe. It was about $14 billion then to be able to reconstruct Europe. And in about 20 years afterwards, Germany did so well that as of the 70s, the German production capacity had increased, the economy had come back on stream. A lot of German products were competing with American products, despite the fact that there was that wall in Germany all that time. So they've been giving us this for quite a while. Nigeria gets close to 400 million pounds, dollars, year on year from the UK in this aid. Well, when is all of this going to stop? When are we going to stand on our own?
That's the interesting question. But also you have to look at where are the aids channeled to. I'm happy you mentioned the one of the Marshall Plan. Let's look at another U.S. policy. In the 50s, under President Eisenhower, they had what they called Food for Peace program. And the aim of that program was to deal with the huge farm surpluses that were being generated. They didn't know what to do with the surpluses. So they created Food for Peace program, and they started in the 50s and 60s to dump a whole lot of wheat in India. So what happened was that paradoxically, those food aid to India ended up distorting the market in India. It created hunger. Local marketing and agricultural initiatives were crippled. So I think you have also to look at the context Prof, and where the aids we are giving.
Prof, just hold on for a minute. We'll go for a quick break. We'll come back and you keep that thought about how that aid disrupted, food prices in India. We'll be right back. Keep it locked.
Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Our guest is still Professor Jideofor Adibe, Professor of Political Science and International Relations at the Nasarawa State University here in Nigeria. Professor Adibe, if you may just continue from where you left off on the question of aid.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was trying to bring in the issue of food for aid policy of President Eisenhower in the 50s. And as I was saying, they had to deal with the huge farm surpluses that were generated, and they didn't know what to do with it. So they created this Food for Peace program. And they were dumping a lot of wheat in India as food aid. One of the things that happened was that suddenly the agricultural market became distorted. And eventually famine collapsed and starvation set in. So that ended up trying to worsen the problem it was apparently on face surface trying to address. But don't forget that the original plan was, what do we do with the surpluses generated? Now, if you compare it to the Marshall Plan, it was a slightly different scenario. Marshall Plan was partly in response or part of the containment policies of the former Soviet Union or containment of communism. So they really wanted the Western alliance to work. They wanted to rebuild Europe to be able again to be effective allies to America in its struggle with communism. So it's a different scenario. The other one was intended to succeed. The other one was essentially not just part of projecting the U.S. power, but as a way of, dealing with the food surpluses that were generated, and they didn't know what to do with it. And I would like us to believe that, let us not forget the fact that when you give, there are several ways countries try to project their power, and giving aid is a very central question of it. It doesn't really matter. That's why in the U.S., during the early stages of COVID-19, when people were talking about oxygen, you still have to make room to give to some countries, not just because it makes you feel good, but by so doing, you project your power globally. And the moment you fail to do it, your power shrinks. Because in international relations, what counts is not your past benevolence, but the leverages you bring on the table at any particular point in time. So AIDS is part of the leverages you try to bring on the table. And you use it to indirectly influence the direction the recipient countries will be looking to. So your companies that are favorable or your companies that you have interest in will always be doing well in the countries where you give the aid recipients. So some people have called it a sort of imperialism. So we don't have to just take it on the face value that once they remove these aids, we are going to suffer. I'm actually one of the people who believe that it is one of the ways we can stop this begging bowl syndrome, for which we are very infamous for.
Okay, and that's my next focus. Tundun referred earlier to the book by Dambi Samoyo, ex-Goldman Sachs, ex-Oxford, Dead Aid. I think that's the title you quoted. Dead aid, why aid is not working and why there is a better way for Africa. Now, the politics of aid has shown that, look, it's not quite working. The management of it, the politics of it, and that there is possibly a better way for Africa. Now, development, investment. Only 6 days ago, Ghana signed up to a trade deal with the United Kingdom. This same United Kingdom, about tariff-free trade on cocoa, on tinned tuna, and some other items, and reciprocal arrangement. What should Nigeria do to attract not aid, but investment, development? We have had trade surplus at some point with the United Kingdom. I don't think we have that trade surplus at this moment. But what should Nigeria do in terms of attracting investment and development? Where are the fault lines, in your view?
Well, I'm sure you know about AGOA. So there are several incentives we have not been able to, exploit, not because those deals are not there, but because we have not been able to, fulfill certain criteria. Okay, Ghana has entered into this arrangement, but they can always use non-tariff barriers. Our own is about product quality. It continues to count against us. So one thing is to enter into a deal, a bilateral deal with one country. Another is to be able to harness your own energies to fulfill all the terms. You were there when we had issues of rotten yams being sent and returned back. And we do know, for example, that under AGOA, some of our products were being bagged in Ghana and then sent so that they will meet the quality criterion. So there are a lot of things we will have to do. One thing is that agreement. Another thing, and more crucial in my own opinion, is getting our acts together so that when we make any deal, bilateral deal, trade deal, we're also in a position to effectively implement our own side of the bargain, especially the issue of quality and quality control. We don't have to get into that kind of embarrassing situation we had, where to show that we are doing well agriculturally, we started to export rotten yams.
Which was rather unfortunate. I wanted to talk to you about how to counter illicit financial flow out of Africa, which has been placed at around $89 billion a year.
Well, it will always be there, and as I said, illicit financial flow is a problem. And it's not just flowing from country A to B, it's a dual thing. There are some financial institutions in the Western world that we know, or we believe are helping in that such illicit financial flow. Because there is always a demand and supply. If there is no demand, there will be no supply. And that's, I believe, the way we have to do it. Nigerian government will do it on its own part, and we encourage the other side to also do its own part. If there is no supply, there will be no demand. If there is no demand, there will be no supply.
All right, real quickly, I want to talk about the international dynamics of insecurity in Nigeria, which is a big problem. In Zamfara State, for instance, they've put up a new no-fly zone, and they're saying some actors are bringing in helicopters and throwing weapons down in replacement for gold, for some of the bandits in that region. What's the international dynamic behind this, and what should Nigeria be doing?
Well, you can say that wherever you see resource mining, there is always a tendency to have some form of banditry. But what I believe, I'm not looking just at the international dimension. When we look at this Northwest, the people where we talk about banditry, some people believe, and I'm inclined to that opinion, there is a shifting alliance between the terrorists that are in, especially the Lake Chad Basin. You have Boko Haram, for example. You have Islamic State. You have several other factions. I believe they are forging an alliance. They are gradually moving into the Northwest, and we are still calling them bandits. I'm not too sure. It's unless there's a new form of alliance that is developing between them. And then, so the whole, how do you police the border between, for example, Niger and Nigeria? It is 1,495 square kilometers. And through those borders, those porous borders, you have influx of terrorists from Mali, from Burkina Faso, and from Niger itself. That creates a problem. So what we call banditry in the Northwest is evolving. It's just like Boko Haram itself is evolving, and we have to look at, the convergence or the alliance between factions of terrorist groups in the Lake Chad Basin and the people we call bandits in the Northwest. If you look at, for example, what is happening, they kidnap, in the recent kidnaps, they have the imprimatur of Boko Haram. If you think of the Chibok girls and the Dapchi girls, they seemed like the same. And so people are suspecting that there may be something going on there, other than what we call banditry and other ordinary kidnapping.
Professor Adibe, thank you very much for joining us on The Morning Show.